My best friend's boyfriend took my first time. Now he won't leave me alone. Nina Rodriguez sat in her favorite coffee shop, watching the rain streak down the windows. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her mug, waiting for Marcus to arrive. 8 years of friendship had led to this moment, and she wasn't sure if she was brave enough to go through with it. Marcus Chen walked through the door, shaking droplets from his dark hair. He spotted Nina immediately and smiled, that warm, familiar smile that had gotten her through countless difficult days. As he approached their usual table, Nina felt her heart racing. "You sounded urgent on the phone," Marcus said, sliding into the seat across from her. His brown eyes searched her face with concern. "Everything okay?" Nina took a deep breath. She had rehearsed this conversation 100 times, but now that the moment was here, the words felt stuck in her throat. Marcus reached across the table and placed his hand over hers. "Nina, you're scaring me. What's going on?" The gentle touch of his hand gave her the courage she needed. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise you won't judge me." Marcus nodded without hesitation. "You know I could never judge you. We've been through everything together. I'm still a virgin," Nina blurted out, then immediately felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. "I know it sounds crazy at 28, but I've never felt safe enough with anyone to take that step." Marcus blinked, clearly surprised, but his expression remained gentle. "That's not crazy, Nina. There's nothing wrong with waiting for the right person." "That's just it," Nina said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think I've found the right person. I think it's you." The coffee shop seemed to go silent around them. Marcus's hand went still on hers, and Nina could see the shock registering on his face. She pressed on before she lost her nerve. I know. You're with Jade, and I'm not asking you to leave her. I'm not asking for a relationship or promises. I just need someone I trust completely. Someone who knows me better than anyone else." "That's you, Marcus. It's always been you." Marcus pulled his hand back slowly, running it through his hair. "Nina, I don't know what to say. This is ... quotes complicated, I know. But I've been thinking about this for months. I trust you more than anyone. In the world, I know you would be gentle, patient, and honest with me. I can't imagine sharing something so important with anyone else." They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of her words hanging between them. Marcus stared out the window, watching people hurry past in the rain. Finally, he looked back at her. "What about Jade?" "She's your friend too." Nina had anticipated this question. She doesn't have to know. This wouldn't be about romance or taking anything away from your relationship with her. It would just be about trust and friendship. Marcus shook his head slowly. "I need time to think about this. This could change everything between us." "I know," Nina said softly. "But maybe it's time for things to change." As they prepared to leave, Marcus pulled Nina into a hug that lasted longer than usual. She breathed in his familiar scent and felt a flutter of hope mixed with fear. Whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were before. 3 days passed without a word from Marcus. Nina threw herself into work, trying to distract herself from the growing anxiety in her chest. She had opened her heart completely, and now she was waiting for him to decide whether to handle it gently or let it shatter Marcus. Meanwhile, was struggling with thoughts he had never allowed himself to have. He found himself looking at Nina differently, remembering the way she had looked at him in the coffee shop, vulnerable and trusting. The professional distance he had always maintained with her was crumbling. At home with Jade, Marcus felt like he was living a lie. Jade chatted about her photography projects and upcoming exhibitions, completely unaware of the storm brewing in his mind. When she kissed him or touched him casually, he found himself thinking about Nina's request. "You've been quiet lately," Jade observed one evening as they prepared dinner together. "Everything okay at work?" Marcus forced a smile. "Just a challenging project. Nothing I can't handle." But it wasn't true. He couldn't handle this. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Nina's face, heard her voice saying his name. The friendship that had always been safe and comfortable now felt charged with possibility. On Thursday night, Marcus found himself standing outside Nina's apartment building. He hadn't planned to come here, but his feet had carried him from his office to her door. He stood there for 20 minutes, debating whether to go up. Finally, he pressed the buzzer. Marcus. Nina's voice crackled through the intercom, surprised and hopeful. Can I come up? We need to talk. She had changed from her work clothes into a simple sweater and jeans, her long dark hair falling in gentle waves around her shoulders. I've been thinking about what you said, Marcus began, standing awkwardly in her living room. I can't stop thinking about it. Actually, Nina's heart pounded as she watched him pace. And I think you're right. About trust. About safety. You deserve to have your first time with someone who cares about you. He stopped pacing and looked directly at her. I care about you, Nina, more than I've ever admitted to myself. Admission hung in the air between them. Nina felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. What about Jade? Marcus's jaw tightened. What she doesn't know won't hurt her. This would just be between us. Just this once. Nina stepped closer to him. Are you sure? Because once we cross this line, we can't uncross it. Marcus reached out and cupped her face gently in his hands. I'm sure. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow night, Nina whispered. Jade is going to that gallery opening, right? She'll be out late. Marcus nodded, his thumb tracing her cheek. Tomorrow night, then. After he left, Nina sat on her couch, touching her face where his hands had been. Tomorrow night, everything would change. She just hoped she was ready for what came next. Friday evening arrived with a soft snowfall that blanketed the city in quiet beauty. Nina had spent the day in a state of nervous anticipation, unable to focus on anything for more than a few minutes at a time. She had prepared everything carefully. Soft music, candles, wine to calm her nerves. Marcus arrived at 8 o'clock, looking as nervous as she felt. He had brought flowers, a simple gesture that made her heart flutter. They stood in her entryway for a moment, both suddenly aware of the magnitude of what they were about to do. We don't have to do this, Marcus said softly. If you've changed your mind, we can just watch a movie like we always do. Nina shook her head. I haven't changed my mind. I want this. I want it to be you. They moved to her bedroom slowly, taking time to talk and laugh, trying to maintain some semblance of their usual friendship. But there was an undercurrent of tension and desire that neither could ignore. Marcus was incredibly gentle, taking his time, making sure Nina felt safe and comfortable every step of the way. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips with a tenderness that made her feel cherished. When he whispered her name, it sounded different than it ever had before. Are you okay? He asked softly, his eyes searching hers. I'm perfect, Nina, whispered back, meaning it completely. What followed was beautiful and intimate, filled with gentle touches and whispered reassurances. Marcus treated her like she was precious, something to be treasured rather than conquered. Every kiss, every caress was deliberate and caring. Afterward, they lay together in the soft glow of candlelight, Nina's head on Marcus's chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong, and felt a peace she had never experienced before. Thank you, she whispered against his skin. Marcus's arms tightened around her. Thank you for trusting me. They stayed like that for hours, talking quietly about everything and nothing. Nina had expected this to be just a physical experience, but it had been so much more. She felt connected to Marcus in a way she had never felt connected to anyone. When Marcus finally had to leave, they kissed goodbye at her door with an intensity that surprised them both. As Nina watched him walk away, she realized that despite her best intentions, her feelings had changed. Was falling for her best friend. And there was no going back. Marcus drove home through the quiet streets, his mind reeling. What had happened between them was supposed to be simple, a favor for a friend, but it had felt like so much more. The way Nina had looked at him, the way she had said his name, the way she had fit perfectly in his arms. It was all he could. Think about when he slipped into bed beside Jade, who was already asleep. Marcus felt like a stranger in his own life. Everything had changed. He wasn't sure he could pretend otherwise. Part 4. The obsession, the days following their night together, became a blur of stolen glances and secret messages. Marcus found himself constantly checking his phone, hoping for a text from Nina. When they met for their regular coffee dates, the air between them crackled with unspoken tension. Nina had hoped that being with Marcus would satisfy her curiosity and allow her to move on. Instead, she found herself craving his touch, his presence, the way he had made her feel that night. She tried to maintain their friendship as it had been, but everything felt different now. Marcus was struggling even. More at work, he found himself staring out the window, replaying every moment of their night together. The way Nina had gasped his name, the way she had looked at him with such trust and desire, it was driving him to distraction. "You seem distracted lately," his colleague Ryan commented during a team meeting. "Everything okay?" Marcus forced himself to focus. "Just tired. I haven't been sleeping well." It was true. He lay awake at night thinking about Nina, while Jade slept peacefully beside him. The guilt was eating at him, but not enough to stop him from wanting Nina again. 2 weeks after their night together, Marcus showed up at Nina's apartment unannounced. She opened the door in surprise, wearing a silk robe that made his pulse quicken. "Marcus, what are you doing here? Can't stop thinking about you," he said, stepping inside without invitation. "About that night, about how you felt in my arms." Nina's breath caught. "Marcus, we agreed. It was just once." "I know what we agreed," he said, backing her against the wall. "But I can't get you out of my head. I need you, Nina." Before she could respond, he was kissing her with a desperate hunger that took her breath away, despite her better judgment. Nina found herself responding, her body remembering how perfectly they fit together. They made love again, this time with an urgency that surprised them both. Marcus was less gentle, more possessive, marking her as his own. Nina surrendered to the intensity, feeling herself getting lost in him completely. Afterward, as they lay tangled in her sheets, Nina felt the first stirrings of concern. "What about—" "Jade, don't mention her name," Marcus said sharply. "Not when you're in my arms." The possessiveness in his voice made Nina shiver. This wasn't the gentle, caring Marcus she had always known. This was someone else entirely. Someone who looked at her like she belonged to him. Over the following weeks, Marcus began showing up at Nina's apartment more frequently. He would call her at work, demanding to know where she was and who she was. When she went out with friends, he would text her constantly, asking when she would be home. "I think we need to slow down," Nina told him one evening, after he had shown up at her apartment for the third time that week. Marcus's expression darkened. "Slow down? After what we've shared? Belong to me now, Nina. You gave yourself to me." "Didn't give myself to you," Nina said firmly. "I shared something special with you, but that doesn't mean you own me." But Marcus wasn't listening. He pulled her into his arms, kissing her neck in a way that made her knees weak. "You're mine," he whispered against her skin. "You've always been mine." Nina felt a chill run down her spine. The sweet, caring man who had been her best friend for 8 years was disappearing, placed by someone possessive and demanding. She was beginning to realize that her simple request had unleashed something in Marcus that she couldn't control. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening when Jade decided to surprise Marcus with dinner at his apartment. She had been feeling disconnected from him lately and hoped a romantic evening might bring them closer together. But when she arrived at his building, she saw him getting into his car. Curious, she followed him at a distance, her heart sinking as she realized he was heading to Nina's apartment building. Jade sat in her car across the street, watching Marcus disappear into the building. She waited for 2 hours, her suspicions growing stronger with each passing minute. When Marcus finally emerged, his hair disheveled and his shirt wrinkled, Jade felt her world crumble. The next morning, Jade confronted Nina at her office. She walked into the marketing firm with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. "We need to talk," Jade said, appearing at Nina's desk like a storm cloud. Nina looked up from her computer, her face paling when she saw Jade's expression. "Jade, what are you doing here?" "I followed Marcus to your apartment last night." "I know what's been going on between you two." Nina's hands shook as she saved her work and stood up. "Can we talk privately?" They went to a nearby park where Jade turned to face Nina with tears in her eyes. "How could you do this to me? I trusted you. I thought we were friends." "We are." "Friends?" Nina said desperately. "Jade, I never meant for this to happen. It was supposed to be just once. just to help me with something I was struggling with. Help you with what? Stealing my boyfriend? Nina took a deep breath and told Jade everything about being a virgin, about asking Marcus to be her first, about how it had spiraled out of control. With each word, Jade's expression grew more hurt and angry. So you used our friendship too? Manipulate him into sleeping with you? Jade said when Nina finished. It wasn't manipulation. I was honest about what I wanted and why. But Marcus has become obsessed, and I don't know how to stop it. As if summoned by their conversation, Marcus appeared at the park entrance. He had been calling Nina all morning, and when she didn't answer, he had tracked her phone to find her. There you are, he said, jogging toward them. I've been looking everywhere for you. He stopped short when he saw Jade, his face going pale. Jade, what are you doing here? I know everything, Marcus, Jade said, her voice cold and steady. About you and Nina? About your little secret affair? Marcus looked between the two women, his expression desperate. Jade, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been lying to me for weeks. How you've been sneaking around with my friend. Jade stepped closer to him. Or maybe you can explain how you've been harassing Nina, showing up at her apartment whenever. You want acting like you own her. Marcus's face hardened. You don't understand what Nina and I have, what you have? Jade laughed bitterly. You have an obsession, Marcus. Nina is tired of it. Look at her. She's scared of you. For the first time, Marcus really looked at Nina. He saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she stood slightly behind Jade as if seeking protection. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Nina, he said softly. Is that true? Nina met? His eyes, her own, filled with sadness. You're not the same person anymore, Marcus. The man I trusted. The man I asked to be my first. He was gentle and kind. But you've become someone else. Someone who thinks he owns me because we slept together. Marcus felt his world crashing down around him. I love you, he said desperately. I've loved you for years, and that night just made me realize how much... That's not love, Nina said firmly. Love doesn't try to control or possess. Love respects boundaries and choices. What you're doing isn't love, it's obsession. Jade stepped forward, her voice strong despite her tears. We're done, Marcus. Moving out of your apartment today. And if you don't leave Nina alone, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. She turned to Nina, her expression softening slightly. I'm hurt and I'm angry, but I understand why you made the choice you did. I just wish you had trusted me enough to come to me first. With that, Jade walked away, leaving Marcus and Nina alone in the park. Marcus looked at Nina with pleading eyes, but she shook her head. I need you to leave me alone, Marcus. I need time to figure out how to repair the damage we've caused. Maybe someday we can be friends again, but right now, I need space. Marcus watched as Nina walked away, realizing that in trying to possess her completely, he had lost both her and Jade. The choice that was supposed to be simple had destroyed everything he cared about, and he had no one to blame but himself. As Nina disappeared into the crowd, she felt a mixture of sadness and relief. She had learned something important about herself, and about the difference between love and obsession. The experience had cost her friendships and caused pain, but it had also taught her to value her own worth and demand respect from those who claimed to care about her. The choice that had started as a simple request between friends had changed all of their lives forever. And while the ending wasn't what any of them had hoped for, it had shown them who they really were when faced with desire, jealousy, and the consequences of their actions.